What's going on, everyone? We had a chance to get our hands on the Ashes of Creation Alpha this past weekend. We did a little bit of questing, explored the world, participated in the siege wars that they held even, and reported a lot of bugs. That being said, the game at its core does have a lot of potential from a design standpoint. However, I do have concerns. For those of you who have watched my channel know that I have concerns, and this video is mostly just going to be a review about our time in the alpha, as well as talking about some of those concerns. The first one being the community, the audience, the consumer, YouTube, Twitch, whatever. People are, I find and I feel, are setting this game up to fail. And what I mean by that is they are overhyping this game to no means. People are putting this game up on a silver platter, high pedestal, calling it the second coming of MMOs, that it's going to revolutionize the genre and save the MMO player base, when I don't even think a lot of MMO players even actually know what type of MMO this is, considering that the largest audience that was exposed to it and at one time was Asmongold's channel, and that's a lot of WoW players. And from what I've played and from what I've read about the game, I don't know that a lot of WoW players or even typical general MMO players will enjoy this game, because it's going to be a game that is all about PvP. It really is. If you don't think it's about PvP, you are mistaken. This game is very much so PvP driven. So as long as you love PvP, you can absolutely 100% love this game. But if you do not like PvP, you will be forced into PvP by the way this game's systems are designed currently. Now, that being said, a majority of the game systems don't even exist. So another thing is, people are talking about this game and all of its incredible features and assets and how things are going to work. And, oh, this sounds really cool. Oh, this sounds really cool. Wouldn't it be really cool if it worked like this? It could be cool if it worked like that, but you don't know that it's going to work like that. All we know is that the way they've talked about it working is how it's going to work. But in actual practicality of when people get their hands on a system, it usually doesn't end up working out the way you designed it to initially. Players will look to abuse and warp the system into their benefit. So I feel like a lot of people are creating these absolute unrealistic expectations about how the game is going to work, about how systems are going to work, or about how in-depth the system could be. And then maybe it doesn't meet that expectation, and then people are just really let down by the product. It's like it's just a roller coaster right now. Everybody's going up, 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 constantly hyping the game, saying all these incredible things about it, how amazing it's going to be, and it's going to change everything. And they're just going up, 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 and you're going to reach the summit. And then if it doesn't meet that expectation, you're just going to be plummeting down, and you're going to be upset, and you're going to be disappointed. And that's not their fault. You cannot fault Ashes for that, and I hope people won't. But that is the thing that I feel like people are setting them up for, especially people who are saying that this game needs to just release already, or that it's almost done. This game is nowhere near done. People need to temper their expectations. Let Intrepid take the time that they need to finish this game. It is nowhere near finished. It is not even within a year of being finished. There are so many things missing from this game, and so many things that are broken or do not work and are not finalized. Now, to talk about some of those things, the graphics in our time in the game. All right, let's talk about the graphics. We're going to talk about our time inside the game now, you guys. The graphics. This is part of those things where I'm talking about people's expectations. I'm not really sure where people were losing their minds over the graphics and visuals, or talking about how absolutely stunning this game was, and that they'd never seen anything like it, and that this was just such an incredible, graphical game that they were seeing. As somebody who's played a lot of different MMOs in the last 5 years, if you've played any Eastern MMO at all, I feel like people who are saying that these games are not beautiful just simply haven't played them. But the graphics that they're currently using are actually pretty standard for what would be today's modern MMO, particularly any MMO coming from the East. Now, in terms of Western MMOs, yeah, sure. If you've only ever played World of Warcraft for the last 15 years, these graphics are going to absolutely knock your socks off and you're going to think they're the next best thing. That's absolutely true. But the degree of graphic quality that is currently present in the game and that you are shown isn't anything mind-blowing or revolutionary or special. And when you compare it to stuff that actually does currently exist in the market, it's maybe just not something you've played that's currently in the market, but it's very much so there. So again, people are blowing things out of proportion, I find, but it is by no means ugly. Do not get me mistaken with that. The game does not look bad. I just don't think it's on this incredible next level appearance that people are talking about it being currently. That being said, it's also not finished. It's an alpha. There's still a lot of work to done, polish, refinement, way more work to be put into the graphics in its current state. Now, one of the things that I absolutely did love about the game was the absolute seamless, vast open world that they had. I absolutely love the world design of Ashes that they have going for it. It felt so good running around the world, and especially when we went up on top of the mountains and you are able to see in the distance the volcano, the ocean, the other nodes, the different biomes off in the distance between the mire and the desert and all that stuff. It was really awesome, and that's the kind of thing that really can suck you in to an MMO's world. And so Intrepid, that is one thing absolutely you are crushing. Keep doing it. Fantastic job on that. There are mostly this video's concerns, but I did want to throw in, some good stuff as well that I did find. But, that is one of the biggest things I felt was really well done. The performance of the game, I felt, was definitely in an alpha state. Again, people are saying that the game is really well optimized and that the FPS performance is incredible. I feel like people are mostly basing that on when they are by themselves in the world with nobody else around and on a not, heavily populated server. Because as soon as and let me preface this with saying that I have a 3070 GPU and a 3800X CPU, my computer is by no means bad, all right? But this was without a doubt where you could tell the game is in an alpha state. It is not optimized yet, all right? Yet, okay? That doesn't mean it won't be, but currently it is not optimized. And I do not think it is fair for people to judge it based on that, but to review it in its current state. That's what we're going to do. Anytime we entered a node village, not even at the village level, but just a node area, without anybody even else around, we immediately dropped to 30 FPS, and there would be some frame stutters and things like that. But, that's one of those things that it needs to be optimized. It's not done. You can tell that they are still working on just implementing everything into the game. When it came to the pre-siege registration, the FPS dropped under 10 FPS with other people in town and all the other mounts and visual effects that were going on. The FPS, the GPUs were pumping real hard. And in fact, the game's actual infrastructure was impacting some other stuff on my computer and actually was making my camera freeze and some of my other, windows lock up and things like that, which that's not good. And that is also something that definitely needs to be fixed. Now, that being said, again, it's an alpha. The graphics aren't finished. Visual effects aren't finished. Animations aren't finished. Things are not optimized. Now, hopefully going forward, that stuff will, over time be adjusted. That is what is expected of development processes. And they definitely need to tone down the visual effects. That is one big thing. It still looks like the 4th of July on your screen when you're in combat, just bright flashing lights one after another, like a total just epilepsy. It's just you're going to have a seizure from all the flashbangs that are occurring on your screen from every single spell. That is one of the things that they still need to turn down. That was one of the things that I heavily criticized the game for over a year ago and still has not changed. And everybody just says, oh, don't worry, they'll fix it. All right, that's fine. That's one of those things where it's like, okay, but when is that it planned in the fixing process, right? It's obviously not a priority now, but it's one of those things. When will it be, right? You never want to hear the, oh, don't worry, they'll fix it in alpha. Oh, don't worry, they'll fix it in beta. Oh, don't worry, they'll take care of it after release. That's happened quite a few times in games, and that's just something you want to avoid, or in release games processes, like, wow, oh, don't worry, they'll fix it in beta. Oh, they'll fix it on the PTR. Oh, they'll fix it in 9.3. So you never want things to take longer. You'd rather them get taken care of sooner. But the server tech, the server performance was actually really done well. They are definitely doing the right thing with their server infrastructure, as well as when they're doing their sieges, which take place in a separate area, instanced area. It does not take place in the open world, and that is a really important thing when impacting performance of something of that scale when it comes to gameplay. And while even then in the siege area, when you did get into the mix of things, your FPS definitely still dropped pretty heavily. The servers 100% held up. There were no DCs. The servers didn't crash, and there wasn't really any input delay or lag delay. It was definitely very heavily GPU delay, FPS, just total disaster in that regard. But their server tech is very good in its current state, so good job there. GPU stuff, optimization, that's just something that takes care of itself over time, hopefully. All right. Now, one of the last concerns that I did have was the combat. In its current state, the combat is extremely rough, nowhere near done. Keep in mind, they currently only have 3 classes in the game. So, guys, the classes aren't even all in the game yet. All the spells aren't even in the game yet. All the abilities, none of that's done. And then you still have to think about the augments, and then how all these systems are going to also integrate in with the classes, with the religion system and the bounty system, all these things. There's so many layers to this game that are not in the game yet. Okay. But I personally feel that the design they're going for just doesn't really fit the type of game they're going for. I personally feel like they would be better off sticking to tab target and making it as dynamic and fluid as possible with the movement and animations to make the combat feel as fun and engaging that they can. For example, Arcade was a tab target game, but because of the fluid focus emphasis on movement and the animations that there was, it was a lot of fun to play. It just felt good to do fights in Arcade, even though it was tab target. And I'm saying that as somebody who loves action combat. The action system that they're going for, albeit it's not done, doesn't really feel like it fits in their current combat world, especially if they're going to try to go for an action or tab type hybrid mix of things. It's one of those things where there has to be a clear cut reason, advantage, benefit to going action over tab, because you risk so much more being in action mode than you do in tab mode. And obviously part of that is because the system's not fully implemented yet. It's not done. All that stuff. Again, guys, the game's in an alpha. It's nowhere near finished. I understand that. But in review of its current state, this is just how I feel about it. It currently really does feel like a scuffed Arcade with an half-baked action attempt thrown onto it. And I just feel like it would be better for them to just throw away the action mode, which is something they're saying they're willing to do if they can't get it to work the way they want. And it's just one of those things I feel like would be better if they focused on sooner rather than later and just made it as good as possible, so that was one of those things that was really well done and refined and polished, because the combat is something people are going to interact with on a daily basis and is such an important part of a game, especially one that is going to have as much PvP as Ashes will. So those are just some of the main concerns that I have around it. Primarily, community. Temper your expectations, slow your roll. It's good to be excited about something. It's bad to overhype and create these unrealistic fantasy ideas in your mind that this is going to be the next greatest thing that's going to overthrow every other MMO and unite the genre. And, you're just setting yourself up to be disappointed. If it becomes that, fantastic. But if it doesn't, you're just going to be angry, and that's not their fault. And I just don't think that's good for the product. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Take it easy.